So, I guess it's time to talk bliss. I know that this is the last talk of the day, and you guys are all probably looking to just zone me out. So, I was initially gonna begin this talk with a moment of narrated meditation, but I decided against it, because this talk is not about meditation. Although it is an amazing thing, and it's something that people are drawn to, because it kind of gives you an experience like no other. You kind of escape from reality for a moment and experience something outside of your own body. And I think it's amazing that humans are capable of doing that kind of thing, especially because we don't even think about it. It's just something that we live with every day. Um, and I guess human psychological processes aren't exactly my bliss, but there is certainly a big part of me that really appreciates that our mind can do so many things that we just take for granted. And we take up for granted a lot of things. For example, what's the last dream that you remember? Um, dreaming can help us in ways that we don't even realize. It takes those pushed away thoughts at the back of your mind and sorts them out for you while you're sleeping. Your unconscious mind makes up these scenarios that you get to live out vividly, and it helps you in your daily life because you have all this experience that you don't even know about. When you think about that dream that you most recently had, how does your personality differ? If you can't remember, that's not unusual. Personally, in my dreams, my personality differs greatly, and my entire outlook on life tends to be significantly different. I am significantly happier, or perhaps I just think less, and that happens to a lot of people. And that's because our unconscious mind and our conscious mind aren't exactly the same thing. Have you ever caught yourself reminiscing about a memory only to realize that it didn't actually happen and that you're recalling a dream? This happens to more people than you think, and it makes sense because our dreams can be so vivid that you can mix them up with reality. Of course, this is only if you wake up directly after your dream or during your dream, because dreams that you have long before you wake up are not remembered. But you do have a lot of chances to dream during your sleep. You dream during the REM phase, which, as you can see, occurs more than one time a night, although you only really remember one dream because you wake up during the last one. But I'm not really here to talk about sleep cycles, so I'm going to move on. The point is that dreams are this amazing thing, and perhaps they cannot tell the future or anything, but it's kind of our unconscious mind talking to us in a sense. And that's just something that our unconscious mind is just something that we trust in. It makes all these decisions for us, like what's right and wrong, and what people are attractive and what people aren't attractive, and just things like that. We notice things in our unconscious mind. It's there for us in a sense. There was a study shown where subjects were shown a variety of images, and their eyes always flashed towards the most negative image first. And that's our unconscious mind's way of alerting us of danger. So even though it's not always correct or doesn't always make sense, our mind is there for us, and I think that's really cool. And it's there for us in different ways, and we have different ways of problem solving and thinking about things. There's deduction, which is not exactly how Sherlock Holmes describes it. It's more of a comparison between things, where A equals B and B equals C, so A equals C. And of course that makes a lot of sense, and it's used in a lot of different parts of our lives. Induction is like this, except it has more variables and it's used in math usually. What Sherlock Holmes does is more like abduction, which is when you take information outside of the original premise in order to draw your conclusion. And I think it's amazing the way that we can just do all this with our mind without even thinking about it, especially if you think about it the way I do, how our brain is kind of powered by our heart and veins, similar to circuitry in a battery, and I just can't get over the fact that that just sounds so robotic and synthetic, but it's not, because unlike robots or other animals that aren't quite as intelligent, we have really complex emotions. We all have this thing called an EQ, which is obviously very much like an IQ, except the E stands for emotional. And it measures our abilities when it comes to emotions, how much we can handle, and how well we deal with them, and how we differentiate them from other emotions. This is normally higher in females. Some people might want to say that people with lower EQs are less of people because emotions are, I'm kind of saying that emotions are what makes us human. But that would be wrong. Don't worry, guys. Because if an IQ and an EQ aren't really something that you can control, and they vary greatly between different people because our minds are physically shaped in a different way. The way our minds are made up of these different chemicals balanced in certain ways makes up who you are. And when there's a chemical imbalance, it can cause a lot of problems such as a cognitive distortion. Cognitive distortions are something that a lot of people tend to get every once in a while. For example, it's when you go to black and white extremes and can't find a gray area, and you make assumptions based on what you think that other people think. And this can cause a lot of problems in your daily life if you rely on your brain telling you something that isn't true. Chemical imbalances can also cause just general brain functions and, and perception. If in minor cases of lack of perception, it becomes difficult to read other people's facial expressions and differentiate sounds and objects in their surroundings. But if in a severe chemical imbalance case, there can be hallucinations or disassociation. And disassociation is when someone feels so utterly disconnected from reality that their senses basically go numb, and it becomes difficult to speak or even walk because they're hardly hearing or feeling anything. And this happens to a lot of people every day, and kind of just blow it off after it's happened. But it's found a lot in mental illnesses, which are also due to chemical imbalances. And the way I'm talking about chemicals right now, they sound like this evil thing, but we all have chemicals in our brains, and they can be pretty awesome. Like serotonin, endorphin, oxytocin, and dopamine. Those are our feel-good chemicals, and when they're released in our brains, it's when we feel this euphoria or bliss that everyone's talking about today. When there's a lack of this, you become significantly less happy, which is when you feel sad and just down. That's when those chemicals aren't really being released in your brain. If your brain is lacking these chemicals for a very long period of time, this is what causes clinical depression. There isn't really a sadness chemical exactly, but there is a chemical or set of chemicals that we feel when we're in danger or angry, which is cortisol and epinephrine, which you also know as adrenaline. These take place because of the activity in the amygdala, which is a tiny part of the brain right there that just causes all those yucky emotions like anger and stress and fear. My amygdala is really acting up right now, standing in front of all of you. And it's hyperactivity of the amygdala can cause a lot of problems like anxiety disorders. And what all these mental illnesses have in common is that after a while, their brains can actually start to shrink because of these neurological pathways in your brain called dendrites. And if they're not being used, then they will constrict, and your EQ and your IQ will be lowered. But this can happen to people who are perfectly healthy. See, if you don't use parts of your brain, then they will slowly deteriorate, and you will become significantly less smart and less emotional, and life will just start to suck a little more. So, more of you than you think need to listen up to this next part, is how you can make your dendrites grow again by stimulating your brain in different ways, by solving math problems, or meeting new people, or learning new skills. Anything that makes you think harder than you normally do, or anything that makes you happy. Basically, anything that makes your life interesting is really healthy for your brain, and you need to continue doing those things in order to improve your brain, which will significantly improve your life. This is what happens when your dendrites constrict and brain activity is lowered. It's not fun, and that's why you have to watch out for keep on using your brain so you can continue to be happy. So if you make your life more interesting and challenge yourself, you can make your life significantly better. Wikipedia defines human as this, but I think we're so much more than that, because we can improve our own lives as well as others just by challenging ourselves and encouraging people, and our relationships are so complex, and we're just these crazy miracle compilations of atoms. And I guess this could be a blissful topic, because I'm here talking about how we can help ourselves and other people every day easily, but we're reluctant to do so, just because we have low confidence and such. There's a quote by Ronald Reagan that I heard yesterday that I decided to put in my speech. There are no constraints on the human mind, no walls around the human spirit, no barriers to our progress except that those we erect. I think that's really important, because the way that we keep going and making our lives better is just having confidence in ourselves, and just making, you're in charge of your mind, basically. And if you want to make it better and be happier, then you can do that just by trying. And I think that's amazing. It's really extraordinary the way that we think, and the way that we can think about thinking, and think about thinking about thinking. And I think that's something to think about. Thank you.